there are severe financial consequences to any project that is delayed. So if we look at the global development pipeline worldwide, there are 15,000 new hotel projects, and that is good for 2.45 million hotel rooms. And this is the record level that we have ever achieved in our industry. If we compare to the year before, that means an 11% increase in number of projects and an 8% increase in number of rooms. Looking at Q4 of 2019, almost 7,000 projects were being constructed, 1.2 million hotel rooms. Now, an interesting fact is that the hotel development pipeline is basically concentrated in 2 countries in the world. And in the top 3, as you will see, United States has almost 6,000 projects, good for over 700,000 rooms. China, 3,500 projects, more than 600,000 rooms. And in third place, Indonesia, with not even 400 projects, only 60,000 rooms. So you can see that the number drops very quickly after China. So what I can tell you about Asia Pacific is that most hotel openings are delayed. And whenever I speak with hospitality executives, what they tell me is, yeah, that's just the way it is, and there's not much we can do about it. And I disagree, by the way, with that statement. What we're going to talk about in today's presentation is the discrepancy between what people think is happening and what is actually causing these delays. And that is an important subject because poorly managed projects have severe financial consequences, such as you're wasting project resources, you're paying salaries, you're paying marketing expenses that you should not incur because you should have been open by then. Opportunity cost. Room inventory and restaurant seats is like vegetables. If you don't sell them, they spoil and you can't sell them again. And if you're listed on the stock exchange, it will have a negative impact on your share price. The slide that I'm sharing with you now is my current research project, and we conducted 635 post-project reviews of internationally branded hotels in Greater China. For your information, Greater China means the People's Republic of China, as well as Hong Kong and Macau, and Taiwan. And what you can see is that over 70% of all the hotel openings were delayed. You could say, well, but at least 20% was on time. Yes, they were on time, but they were not on brand, not on budget, and not on customer. What I can tell you about the delay, we measured the delay only from onboarding of the general manager. So let's say Juan Carlos is the general manager. He starts today, should open in 12 months, but actually he opened 23 months later, meaning a delay of 45 weeks. Personally, I do not talk about opening a hotel, but I talk about technical, operational, and commercial readiness. The hotel needs to be ready before you can cut the ribbon. And any delays in the simultaneous technical, operational, and commercial readiness will lead to increasing pre-opening expenses. Those 45 weeks of delay, you still need to pay the salaries of the people. They tie up corporate resources. People like myself that support hotel opening projects cannot move on to the next project. We are stuck. The local press and people in the neighborhood, they will pick on you in social media, not good for your reputation. You had forecast actually that at a certain point in time, you would start making revenue. And of course, for hotel companies, this is a problem because now there is a gap in the revenue. And then the opportunity cost of inventory that is basically perishable. So what I can tell you about those 635 hotel openings that we investigated is that the pre-opening budget, which is for recruitment, training, salaries, sales and marketing expenses, etc., went over by 35% on average. And if you were a hotel owner, in those 45 weeks, if you would have opened on time, you would have earned $15 million in terms of revenues. So that is an opportunity cost. At the same time, if you were IHG or Marriott or Hilton, you would have earned $850,000 in management and incentive fees. The slide that I'm sharing with you now compares the growth trajectory of China against the growth trajectory of the United States. And China by now has roughly 2.7 million hotel rooms. That number will reach 6.1 million by 2025. And then by 2039, just before my retirement, we'll reach 9.1 million hotel rooms. What this means is that for the next 20 years, China will open 3 hotels of 150 rooms every day of the year for the next 20 years. There's, of course, a number of differences between China and the United States. And the first one is that the growth in China only started in the late 1980s. And in the United States, the growth started in the 1950s when President Eisenhower signed the Interstate Highway Act. And with building the highways, of course, the franchises like Holiday Inn First followed. The second one is that in North America, a lot of the hotel companies got big, not by building hotels, but by buying other hotel companies. And the latest example, of course, is the acquisition of Starwood Hotels and Resorts by Marriott International. What will happen here in China, or what is happening here in China and in Asia, is that most new hotels will be built from scratch, so greenfield. Another interesting fact is that in North America, which includes Mexico and Canada, is that 66% of all the room inventory is branded. And in Asia, that is only 22%. Now, this trend is slightly changing because it makes sense, of course, to be with an outfit that provides you with distribution capability and a loyalty program. So as you can see from this pipeline, and I got this from the internet, all of the big hotel companies have big pipelines. For example, Marriott has more than 600 projects across Asia Pacific, and in China alone, almost 300 projects. And the list is very long. And very often we see CEOs on CNBC that announce their plans. We're going to sign 500 more hotels in India. We're going to open this year 250 hotels in China. And my question always is, if you make those announcements, how do you convince 600 individual owners to sign a contract with you? But I struck that question out because this is not what I do. This is the challenge of my colleagues in business development. However, if you say, I am going to open 500 hotels, what about your capabilities and what about your resources? In other words, how are you going to execute aggressive growth plans? And then, of course, let's just say that you did manage to sign 600 management agreements or franchise agreements. How can you open those hotels on time, on brand, on budget, and on customer all the time? So those are the questions that I ask. The slide that I'm showing you now is a project life cycle for new hotels. And all of these phases are interdependent, meaning you cannot start the architecture and interior design phase if you did not appoint a brand and an operator, because of course you would need input on your kitchens, on your back of the house facilities, etc. And all of these interdependent phases, unfortunately, based on my experience, are managed independently. So the owner of the hotel will independently appoint an architect and an interior designer, someone who builds the hotel, then opens and operates it. And because these interdependent phases are managed in little silos, it makes for many problems during the project and also after the project once the hotel has opened. So what I can share with you about the hospitality industry is that project management methodology and standards are not applied in our industry. But we do think that we use project management because we use Microsoft Project. But that is just a tool and not a methodology, of course. A very important concept, which is at the heart of project management, which is a cycle of initiating a phase, planning a phase, executing, closing a phase, and in between checking what is going on, monitoring and controlling, are simply not applied. And another one is that, like in hospitality management, where we have very clearly defined knowledge, we call it departments, such as sales and marketing, food and beverage, revenue management, etc. This also exists in project management. And we have very clear knowledge, step by step, how to develop your scope, how to manage your schedule, how to communicate with stakeholders, what to do with the things that can go wrong. They are not applied either. And as an example, and we were speaking about this just before the class started, people often say there are so many things in a hotel project that can go wrong and we could not have known about. But actually, most of the problems that occur in hotel openings, we could have known about it if we would simply have sat down and analyze what could go wrong, write it down, and develop a strategy for dealing with it. And that is project risk management. And if we were to apply project risk management, actually, we would be able to better forecast the accuracy of our opening date. Now, what you do need to realize is that in Asia Pacific, hotel companies such as Marriott and Wyndham and Accor do not own any of the hotels. They are owned by local entities. So since Accor does not own, they do not have any control at all over the construction and the budgets to fit out the hotel. The relationship between the owner of the hotel and the management company is regulated by a technical service agreement for the pre-opening, a hotel management or franchise agreement, and a trademark license agreement. And the fun thing to know is that a typical IHG contract in Asia Pacific includes a clause that says the owner, at his or her expense, shall employ a professional project manager in order to manage the opening of the hotel. But because neither the owner nor IHG understand the importance of project management, this clause is never enforced. So what typically happens is that the hotel opening actually is driven by the corporate office, who will dispatch a general manager to the site, possibly a property-based task force, which means that we recruit the management team locally and then borrow an executive chef from another hotel in another city, a front office manager from yet another hotel in yet another city to assist for 6 months in the pre-opening process. And then there is a corporate pre-opening support function, someone like myself, who is on the phone on a daily basis with the hotel management team in order to make sure that all the processes leading to the opening start and end on time. Now, that approach used to work 10 years ago when we opened 5 or 10 hotels at the time per year in China. Then, of course, there was an enormous spike in new hotel projects, and companies like IHG started to open 50 to 100 hotels per year. So the approach of having a task force did not work because there were simply not enough people in the existing hotels that we could borrow the management teams from. We did think about setting up a permanent task force, a team of experts that just go from hotel opening to hotel opening and then the next one. And that does not work because you don't have one opening per month on average. The first couple of months of the year, nothing happens because of Chinese New Year and because of the weather across the country. So the openings get pushed towards the middle and the end of the year, and you can only be in one place at the same time. And then finally, those staff do not belong to IHG or to Accor. They belong to the local hotel, and you will need to ask for permission from the sending hotel, pay for it, and of course the people that stay behind, they get settled with extra work. So what typically happens is that the hotel general manager, proverbially, we put him or her in an airplane, parachute the person out over the hotel as a figure of speech, and then he or she hits the ground running. And I really dislike that expression, hit the ground running, because if you didn't plan in which direction are you going to run? And then in the end, as soon as this person arrives, the general manager get pulled into construction meetings and interior design meetings. All the things that we do not learn in hotel school that we're not qualified. So let's agree that there's a big difference between the skill set that you need in order to manage a hotel opening project and the skill set that you need in order to manage ongoing hotel operations. But what goes wrong here is that people think, well, new hotel project, hotel general manager, it both has the word hotel, so that sounds all right. I'm going to compare that in another industry and you will get the picture why that is not all right. So first of all, we have an airline captain and we have an aeronautical engineer. The captain flies the plane and the engineer designs the plane. Let's swap them. So today the captain is designing and the engineer is flying. And if I was with you in class, you would all go like, but Gert, are you insane? Because they are not qualified. And that is exactly the point. What makes us think that someone who has been trained for 4 years in hospitality management and administration is now qualified to manage a 25 million US dollar project? So we conducted interviews with about 80 CEOs, vice presidents, owners, and general managers, because we wanted to understand how international companies in Greater China go about opening new hotels. We also wanted to understand, why is it that opening after opening is delayed? What is causing this? Now, the people that we spoke with worked for one of 15 international and regional hotel companies. Here's a couple of things that I did want to share with you about the people that we spoke with. None of them actually were an expert in project management. Nobody that we spoke with had had any project management training. And at that time, this is a couple years back, the only exposure that I had had to project management training was an online course from Cornell called Project Leadership. Nobody that we spoke with had experienced an opening that was on time. And on time was measured by the contractual opening date or the target opening date when the general manager started his or her duties. Nobody had had any type of project management certification, and only one person in the past, who was an engineer by trade, had been certified by the Project Management Institute. Even more worrisome is that 95% of the people that we interviewed had never even heard of the Project Management Institute. What we can tell you about those 15 management companies is that only 2 out of 15 had a dedicated department that supported the pre-opening teams during that pre-opening period. They were IHG, I worked there, and Hilton. The other companies did not have a dedicated department, for example, to deal with pre-opening budgets, purchasing of your operating equipment and supplies, and recruiting the general manager, the director of finance, director of human resources. None of the hotel companies to this day, despite all of the hotels that need to open here, employ certified project managers. And in fact, they don't even have a project management department. All right, so back to those 80 people, we asked them 2 questions. Question 1 was, how does your company go about opening new hotels? And question 2, in your personal opinion, what is causing these hotel openings to be delayed? So these people gave us more than 852 points, which we sorted out into 51 subcategories, and we further grouped that into 10 neat little buckets. We then used a Pareto analysis to rank them in order of importance, and this is what came out of it. 38% of the delays was blamed on hotel design and construction, 24% owner, 10% hotel operator, 8% pre-opening activities and operational readiness, and 4% was blamed on procurement. Now, we didn't say, okay, that's it, research done. We said, well, let's try and find out what is really happening. So we applied a root cause analysis to that purpose. And the first step was to go back to those subcategories and categories to make a decision as to what is actually a direct cause and what is an intermediate cause. Now, a direct cause means that this happens, it stops your opening immediately. For example, if you do not get your fire license from the fire bureau, or if you did not get your business license from the Chamber of Commerce, it will stop your opening. An intermediate cause means that you should do something today or next week, but even if you don't, you won't feel the pain next month, even a couple of months down the track. But obviously, at the end, it will delay the opening. And a typical example here is, I advocate to onboard the purchasing manager 8 months in advance. Why? We need to order a lot of stuff. We need to make a contract with the vendors, and we need to make a down payment. And only when the down payment has been made will the vendors start to produce towels, bed sheets, uniforms, etc. And then they still need to be sent to the hotel. They need to be washed before we can use them. So delaying the onboarding of the purchasing manager will delay The down payment will delay the production. And in the end, we have a hotel that is ready, but no uniforms, no towels, and no bed sheets. And that is an intermediate cause. We then applied the 5 whys technique to try and understand what was really happening. And in one of the next slides, I will run you through one of the main vectors. We were able to deduce the underlying reasons and actually come up with the root causes of hotel opening delays. And all that information, we mapped it out, the sequence of events and the vectors, as well as the relationship between the direct, the intermediate, and the root causes. And what came out of this is this spaghetti chart. It's a little bit small to read, but I will talk you through it. And at the bottom, you can see that there's a number of colored boxes that are numbered 19 until 23. These are the so-called direct causes. This is what people think is causing the delays. And all the way at the top, you can see that there's 3 boxes numbered A, B, and C. And these are the root causes. These are the real reasons. And the conclusion is that between what people think is happening and what is actually happening is 6 levels of difference. Okay. And the way I best describe it, since we're not using project management, is that this project, this patient, is very sick and needs urgent surgery. But what are we prescribing? We're prescribing Panadol or aspirin for a headache. And obviously the patient will not get better, and the next patient will also not get better. So in conclusion on the root cause analysis is that 4 sets of what people think is happening are actually only direct causes. And they are delays in concept, design, construction, and handover, delays in pre-opening activities and poor execution, delays in the procurement process, and non-compliance with brand standards. The other 6 sets of perceived causes are actually intermediate causes, so somewhere between the direct and the root causes. Now, the root causes are project investment motivation, which means that the project was undertaken not for a return on investment. And by now, I've been involved directly in about 50 hotel opening projects across Asia. I do ask the question, Mr. or Madam Chairperson, why are you undertaking this project? And a typical answer here in China is, you know, Gert, my competitor has a hotel. I must have a bigger hotel. Or, you know, my wife is bored. She needs a hobby so that she's busy. Or I have a lot of cash that I can't bring to the bank, so I better invest it in a hotel. Only one time did an owner tell me, I studied in the United States. I observed the model of Holiday Inn Express. I will build the hotel for 10 million, sell it in 7 years for 15 million. And that should be the only reason, of course, to build a hotel, return on investment. The second reason is that neither on the owning company side nor on the hotel operator side is there a project management culture. We have service culture, we have a culture of revenue management, but there is no culture of doing projects. And then the third one is the management company modus operandi, the way companies like Hyatt, Hilton, Intercontinental go about running hotel companies. So delays can happen because of one, some, or all of the above reasons. Unfortunately, and this is a little bit sad, is that none of the real reasons, the root causes, were mentioned and identified by the people that we spoke with. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to pretend that all of us were members of a pre-opening team. We just finished the hotel opening. We have paying customers. And what we would now do is a post-project review, which means we are going to do an autopsy of the project to understand what we did well and what went wrong. And that is, of course, never to blame anybody or to fire anybody, but this is to write down what we did well, lessons learned, best practices, and what went wrong. And why do we write that down? Well, in the next project that we would do, the first thing we would do is read the problems that we had in the past project. So to make sure we don't make the same mistakes again. All right, so we're all seated in the boardroom. Guys, we were late, and according to TripAdvisor, we are not up to service standards. So what happened? What went wrong? You know, all those problems were caused because the general manager and the team were on board late. Okay, but Once a hotel building is topped off, you know that roughly a year later they will hand over. So why were they on board late? Between the owner and the operator, we did not agree on the opening date. And by the way, that frequently happens, that there's different opening dates for hotel projects in Asia. And we did not agree on the hotel opening process. Okay, well, why did we not agree? You know, Gert, the owner really doesn't understand the process. Okay, but why? I mean, we have opened so many hotels the past years. We must have a website or a brochure or a manual about that. And that would be, such document would be your project management plan. We don't have such a plan. Okay, why don't we have such a plan? There was no one to prepare that plan, and that no one should have been your project manager. Okay, well, why don't we have a project manager? That's not part of our hotel opening methodology. All right, and now finally we are getting somewhere. Why is that not part of our methodology? Gert, that's not the way we do things around here. And the way we do things around here, that is of course your company culture. So as you can see, from late onboarding of the GM through to no project management culture is about 6 levels of difference. But we keep on talking about the hotel opening was delayed because the general manager and the team started late. What I often hear, though, when I talk about this at hospitality conferences or when I do workshops for hotel companies, Gert, so what if the opening is delayed? This is not our problem. This is the owner's problem. It's his money. Well, think again. The Project Management Institute does a lot of research, and every year they publish a report about the state of the project management industry. And what they said in last year's report is that for every $1 billion invested in projects, 114 million US dollar goes straight into the garbage bin because of poor or no project management. They also said that companies that do apply project management succeed 92% of their projects. On the other hand, if you don't do project management, 1 out of 3 projects only will succeed and 2 will fail. And I think the hotel industry, based on my research, has an even poorer performance. Also very interesting is that companies that invest in project management waste 28 times less. What do we mean with invest in project management? It means that we buy a very good project management software tool. It means that we provide training for our employees involved in projects. It means that if we open a lot of hotels, we develop a career path for those employees within the company. So I needed to put a number to the financial implications for the hospitality industry, because those statistics don't mean anything to a typical hotel company chief financial officer. So I went back to the top 10 international hotel companies and I got their tax reports. And in the tax reports, companies like Marriott and Hilton must report how many hotels they have in their pipeline. Because if you report pipeline, this has a positive effect on your share price. And regulators want to make sure they don't report numbers that are overly optimistic. So the top 10 companies in the world, which includes Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Accor, Jinjiang, they have a combined pipeline of 8,000 projects or 1.2 million hotel rooms. And remember, the global pipeline is 15,000 projects with 2.45 million rooms. So 10 companies actually control, direct, influence, manage about half of the global development pipeline without any project management capabilities. Now, to put a dollar value to it, I multiplied every project times a very conservative 15 million US dollar. So the value of that fixed asset project pipeline is 120 billion US dollar. Using the statistic from the PMI, 114 million wasted for every 1 billion. For those 10 hotel companies, 13.7 billion US dollar is at risk. And finally, I extrapolated from my own study the 15 million opportunity cost for owners and 850,000 opportunity cost for operators. And that gives us a combined opportunity cost of 127 billion US dollar. So the statement on top does not hold true, of course. All right, Let's talk about something, some good news now, because a hotel opening is in fact a project. And if you were to use a very standard project management methodology, it is very well suited to open hotels on large scale. And large scale, by the way, that does not always mean hundreds or thousands of new hotels. For a smaller regional company, like here in Hong Kong, we have Shangri-La and Mandarin Oriental. Mandarin Oriental has 30 hotels. To them, opening 5 or 10 new hotels is opening on large scale. On the other hand, for IHG in Greater China, opening 1,000 new hotels is large scale. The fact that we can use a standardized methodology is simple. The processes involved in any hotel opening are always the same. An opening is an opening is an opening. And because the processes are the same, we can standardize our pre-opening schedule, our pre-opening budget, training schedules and training plans, etc. The only thing that changes is that the higher up in the chain scale, those processes do become a little bit more complex and a little bit longer. So for example, a 2-star IBIS, we would order one type of knife, spoon and fork. And that would take us 1 day because Accor would dictate the vendor. For a Sofitel with 10 restaurants, we would probably need to order 100 types of knife, spoons and fork, make a tabletop, and that process would take us 2 months. But the line item in the pre-opening schedule that we are monitoring says buy stuff for the restaurant. So the process is identical. So if the industry is going to open 15,000 new hotels effectively and without delays and cost overruns, we must upgrade our understanding of project management, the methodology and the techniques. Couple of points to recognize though before we can move forward. And the first one is that our industry is not linking project delays to the absence of project management culture and the absence of the lack of a methodology to manage projects. What the industry perceives to cause these new hotel opening delays are actually only symptoms of more deep-seated systemic problems. So to move forward on this, I would like to share with you the 5 building blocks to improve project performance. And the improvement is on top of this pyramid. And in order to improve your project performance, actually all you need to do is implement a methodology and a number of standards. And you don't even have to invent these. These exist. You can buy them off the shelf. However, and there is a however, the complicated part is, of course, before you can do so effectively, you will need to work on the culture of the company, the way the company is organized, and education. And I will share with you my experience from when I joined Wyndham Hotel Group. So Wyndham Hotel Group, a US-based company, they hired me in order to open new hotels in Greater China. Now, to them, opening a new hotel was franchise. You know, we provide standards and the franchisee does all the work. As where in China, most new hotels are done under management contract. So we as a company are responsible. And that involves a lot more work. And I needed to overcome that cultural bias of opening hotels is Gert's problems. And I was saying, no, opening hotels is everyone's problems. And by the way, we need to translate all of the brand standards in Chinese because typically Chinese construction managers, etc., do not speak a word of English. The second one was that I was reporting to someone in New Jersey who was on a 12-hour time difference. And that did not work, of course, because when I needed an answer, it's because I had an owner on the telephone who needed some information to move forward on the project. So we needed to work on a slight reorganization whereby I could make my own decisions. And finally, since no one really understood what hotel openings was, I wanted to spend some money on training people, project management 101, the fundamentals of project management, right? And as an industry, we spend millions of dollars to train people how to better operate hotels, how to generate more revenue, how to have a better yield. But we spend $0 on training people how to better manage new hotel opening projects. All right, so there are a number of industry challenges. Let's talk about what stands in our way of just doing this. And the first thing is that our industry has a very limited understanding of project management as a strategic competence. Quite often it's confused with construction management, but as you saw in the project life cycle, construction is 1 out of 15 phases. And very often I get a call like, we're trying to open this hotel, should open in 3 months, but everything has gone wrong. Can you come and do your magic? And of course, there is no magic in project management. We need to start working today to have the benefit of that in 2.5, 3 years from today. The second challenge that we're facing is that there are very few project management champions, people like myself that are passionate about project management because it makes business sense. And I don't know of any hotel company in Asia Pacific that hires certified project managers. Now, hotel companies are traditionally very conservative. And I heard Juan Carlos say that there is another seminar or another lecture on revenue management. One of the examples that I'm going to give you to validate this statement involves actually revenue management. So revenue management was invented by American Airlines when the US government deregularized the US airspace. And instantly, airlines started to compete on previously protected routes. So after the airlines, instantly, car rentals and timeshare companies all took over revenue management because, hey, by better managing your inventory and rates, you can actually increase the company benefits. The hotel industry did not follow. And it was only 10 years later that Bill Marriott was seated next to the chairman of American Airlines, thought it was a great idea, and Bill Marriott brought revenue management to Marriott International. And in year 1, by better managing inventory and rates, he was able to increase the company revenue by $30 million US. And from that moment onward, it took another 10 years for other hotel companies to embrace. The second example is total quality management, which was invented by Motorola. Then Jack Welch from GE visited Motorola, brought it back to GE with remarkable success, and subsequently other industries started to implement total quality management or Six Sigma, except the hotel industry. So 10 years later, when Barry Sternlicht bought Westin and Sheraton ITT and created Starwood Hotels and Resorts, at that point, the way hotels dealt with complaints was by sending a fruit basket. So guest complains that the air conditioning is not working, send a fruit basket. That does not work, of course. And Barry Sternlicht hired a COO from outside the hospitality industry who looked at that and said, no, we need to solve problems in a systematic way. And he implemented Six Sigma at Starwood Hotels and Resorts. And again, of course, with remarkable results. There were less complaints. Other hotel companies from that moment onward took another 10 years to implement that as well. So I've been talking about project management with hotel companies for about 6 years. I'd say only 4 more years to go. And maybe one positive outcome of this COVID crisis is that the pressure on capital for investment will be that there is a better oversight, better governance of how projects are managed. So actually, it could speed up the agenda. The next one is that hotel companies are set up as functional organizations and not matrix organizations. It means that a hotel company has an operations department and a sales and marketing department, revenue and finance departments. And that works well once the hotel is up and running. But in a project environment, when we have limited time available, we don't have time for me to talk to my boss, who talks to your boss, who talks to you, and then back to me. I need to be able to talk to anyone involved in the project, regardless of their rank in the organization chart, in the hierarchy. And then again, there is that big misunderstanding in the industry as to what is causing hotel openings to be delayed. Now, we have a number of challenges. There is a whole list of internal roadblocks that I will share with you in the next slide. There are some implementation challenges. There is what is known as the knowing-doing gap of project management. And the knowing-doing gap, it means that you ask a hotel company CEO, what is your vision? to sign 1,000 more hotels or to open 300 more hotels in South America. They know that part. When you ask them, how are you going to execute that vision? They don't know. And executing visions, of course, is done through project management. And then finally, there is the difficulty of selling project management to senior leadership. To them, it's a band-aid. If we have a problem, then we use project management. So tactical, like crisis management, as where what I am selling is, let's work for the next 3 years, build a solid foundation, scale up our capabilities and resources, and that will allow us to grow in a country or in a continent. And that is why it's so hard, because senior leadership works on quarterly earnings and year-end results, and not something that might be beneficial in 3 years from today. Now, the internal roadblocks, they include lack of understanding of project management by senior executives. It's construction management, it's crisis management. People like to control the processes. Once you have mapped out, of course, who is supposed to do what, people are worried that you're tracking them, keeping an eye on what they're doing and holding them accountable. This is a perceived concern, of course, that it is very expensive to implement project management. But based on the opportunity cost that we saw just in the pre-opening, of course, this is a non-concern, it's a non-issue. We've always done it in this way. We are too busy to implement project management, but actually you could hire someone in order to do that for you, right? If we talk about project management to the owner, Gert, that's not good for the relationship, and we are at risk of never signing another agreement with this hotel owner. Ignorance and arrogance, incompetence. And what I find is that a number of hospitality executives 20 years ago or 15 years ago, they were behind the kitchen stove and they got into a senior role, but they never educated themselves on strategic competences like project management. Now, I once had a discussion with the chief financial officer of Wyndham Hotel Group. He asked me, what is it that you do? He said, you're the guy that opens hotels. And I said, well, that's part of what I do. But the other part is that I built the methodology that will help us maintain the share price. And what should have been a 10-minute discussion became a 1.5-hour discussion. And I shared this study with him. And in 1998, there was a researcher that looked at IT projects that were failing. And this is before Yahoo Finance. But what he did was he cut out from magazines and newspapers. And let's say Word version 2 was not performing well. There were glitches. He related that bad news with the share price. And guess what? Companies with problems in projects, IT projects, the stock dropped between 20 to 90%. There were also 7 firms that he investigated that lost an average of 59% of their stock value while they were being hammered. And interesting enough, actually, it did include a consortium of 1 airline, 1 hotel company, and 1 car rental that were trying to implement a new reservation system, and it didn't work. And their share prices really dropped. He also concluded that if those projects would have been properly managed through project management, actually their average net earnings would have increased by 6%. So my message to the chief financial officer was that if we apply project management to new hotel opening processes, it will contribute to maintaining our earnings and stock value. And possibly, if it is known that we are very good at opening hotels without delays and cost overruns, it would help us improve. So in recap, hotel openings in Asia Pacific are very frequently delayed. And in my opinion, it is all self-inflicted. Hoteliers are not linking the lack of these delays with the lack of project management culture. We do have a number of challenges before we can embrace project management. But then again, it's not rocket science, and project management has already been implemented in 85 different industries and sectors. All right, Juan Carlos, that brings us to the end of the presentation. We can open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Really interesting. And definitely it's a big issue for the owners and the operators. of the hotels. Okay, so we will open the questions. So if you have any, please raise your hand and we will open the micro. Not everybody at the same time, because we cannot handle that.
Thank you very much, Gert. I have enjoyed very much your presentation. And well, it seems, I have a kind of a question, because it seems very obvious the importance and the financial importance of project management. So why are we still not doing it? What is wrong with the industry, or is this a business general problem? And how and what can we do as hoteliers and as a school to help this problem, to solve this problem and to make this problem I don't know, make it worth to the investors?
Yeah, Damian, it's an excellent question. It's what Northside Consulting does, trying to help hotel companies change the way they think. There's a number of issues, and the very first issue is that the big companies, and it doesn't matter where they are listed, they work on quarterly earnings. That means we work on the next 3 months. So if I would have a magic wand and could solve problems for the next 3 months, I'd be in business. But any typical discussion with a hotel company CEO or senior vice president, they tell me, hey, Gert, buddy, what can you do? Quick results, low-hanging fruits. Based on those 5 building blocks, there are no low-hanging fruits. We need to work hard for the next 2 years once we have established what is wrong in your company and how do we fix it. Mm-hmm. They have already checked out, because something that happens in 3 years, they maybe have moved on. And to illustrate how serious the problem is, Damian, I was with Wyndham Hotel Group in Asia Pacific for 3.5 years. Every Monday morning, we called it morning prayers. We talked about, Juan Carlos, how many contracts did you sign? Okay, Damian, how many hotels did you open this week? We never talked about guest satisfaction. But I was saying, look, guys, next year we need to open 50 hotels. I don't have directors of technical services. I don't have design reviewers. We need to hire now or we cannot handle. That costs money. We'll deal with that later. Well, I cannot open a can of talent. And as a result of not acting today on what we knew was going to happen in 12 and 24 months, in those 3.5 years, I worked with 5 managing directors. And guess why they got fired? They got fired for not meeting the numbers. And they would have been able to meet those numbers, or at least adjust the forecast, by letting me work on project management. Now, let's now talk about what the fundamental issue is here. And the fundamental issue is that, let's say you are the hotel owner, this is your money, and your objective is to build the hotel and sell it in 10 years for a profit. Juan Carlos is from the management company. He is not investing in your hotel and he does not care about your return on investment. He just wants to talk nice to you, convince you to sign with him, so that he can go to the news, to the press, and say, I signed another hotel, I'm going to open a new one in Ecuador. Okay, why? Because the people that are the shareholders say, oh wow, this company is so strong. And that is what Juan Carlos wants. He wants more hotels so that the share price goes up. And those two objectives are not aligned. Then there is another thing that a lot of people do not know, Damian, which is when you sign a management contract with Juan Carlos, this is going to cost you $500,000 to $1 million. 5 years before the hotel opens. So do you think that the person representing the management company is going to tell you, maybe you should not do this project? Of course not, because there is a self-interest to make revenues from convincing you to sign a contract with them. And that is what is at stake. So they're focusing on the wrong objectives. And that's why they're not looking at the consequences long-term. It's all short-term gain, but long-term pain, because once the hotel is open and it's not performing, you are going to call Juan Carlos and say, why is my hotel empty, or why is the rate too low, right? And that is the fundamental issue. So long answer, but I hope that puts things into perspective.
No, it's a great answer, and I completely agree, because sometimes management companies um, only care about making the money for the management company and not for the hotel, and less about the guests. Um, Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful talk. And the other part of my question is, what do you suggest us as universities to make this a core competence of something like hotel management degree?
You should.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I don't know, in terms of continuous education, and because there are not a lot of professionals that like yourself that can teach these things. So what do you think? I don't know, the vision. Where should we go from here? How can we fill that void that our students and ourselves have right now in regarding project management and the hotel opening process?
So there's a number of ways to skin the cat, Damian. For your information, it took me 3 years of lobbying and negotiating and promoting to the educational sector before I finally found one school that said, let's do this. And that ties in, of course, there's no demand from hotel companies. Therefore, why would you include this in your curriculum? Now, it really depends on which region you are in and what the objectives are. But a couple of objectives could be that you train people to become hotel opening specialists. I have developed such a course with a university in the Netherlands. It's a 2 months minor, and we really teach hotel opening management. On the other hand, at the university here in Hong Kong, we teach fundamentals of project management. Why? Because the people that are in school now will join property developers, but they will never do the real project. What we want to do is equip them with high-level knowledge that if you don't use project management, these are the financial consequences. And that is to help them make the right decision. By the way, any project that I do, the first thing that an owner always says, I have a piece of land and my friend is an architect, so I'm going to do a hotel. At that moment, if we have equipped the student with high-level knowledge, they can step in and say, bad idea. We need to work on the business case first and the feasibility study. So we should not train hardcore project managers. You can hire these, but we should train people with the knowledge to step in and to influence discussions. As in, do you realize what you're saying? You know, architecture, you're going to spend a lot of money, but you may not end up with a functional hotel and an asset that is going to generate a return on investment. So stop, go back to the fundamentals, right? But we don't teach that in hotel schools typically. What we do find is, yes, of course, there are courses in feasibility, there are interior design courses, but again, they are in those silos and no one is making the link between those. So one of the things that I would strongly recommend is that we work on including an understanding of the interdependencies between those phases, but more on a high level rather than you are going to be on site with a hard hat, basically Bob the Builder. That's not what we should do, I think.
Man, it's a great answer. And what about, because I think it's very exciting to develop a new project from scratch, and you need a lot of knowledge of a lot of things. So if someone like any of our students want to pursue a career in project management, I think what are the pros and cons? Because I think it may be very lucrative to go into the project management and hotel opening career. What do you think? What would you be some advice you can give to our students?
So the first advice that I always give is, we don't meet for the next 10 years, and in 10 years we meet. What's on your business card, right? Because this is application of project management to your own career. If you say, I want to be a hotel general manager in 10 years, fine. In 1 year before you achieve that, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, what do you need to do in terms of experience? As an example, if you want to be a GM in 10 years, you should not waste time in the kitchen for the next 5 years, right? Because it will not increase your chances of me hiring you, right? On the other hand, if you do 2 years of operations, 2 years of sales and marketing, 2 years of revenue management, and 1 year of finance, I think you're ready. In parallel, what are the other things that you're going to do? Should you learn something about, I don't know, HACCP or another course? And very important, in parallel, what are the languages that you are going to learn today? Is it Chinese? Is it Portuguese? Something, all right? As to why you should consider project management, and it doesn't matter whether you have a high level understanding or a very detailed understanding, is that first and foremost, it's a skill set that is transferable. So yes, obviously I use hotel openings as an example, but if I would have to do a hotel renovation, same methodology. A new restaurant or a restaurant refurbishment, same methodology. Upgrade your system, your software system, same methodology. And tomorrow, could I open a hospital? Sure, because it's the same methodology. Of course, I would make very sure that I would have knowledgeable people that understand hospital operations, right? But that is the thing in project management. It's never, should we hire Juan Carlos or Damian? No, we need both. Damian, because he is a hardcore project manager, and Juan Carlos is the hospitality expert. And you need to marry them up in order to have both that those two sides. Now, if you understand hospitality operations and you have the advantage of understanding project management as well, you are really able to influence the outcome. And believe me, there is a lot of ignorance both on owner side and operator side. They all want to talk right away about what's the look and the feel of the hotel, as where I really don't care about how the hotel will look like. Show me on paper that we will make money, right? But I know that because I learned it the hard way. I have to be very honest. I was what they called an accidental project manager, not qualified, not experienced, go open a hotel. It's a miracle that I opened on time, right? It's only because genetically I'm predisposed towards process, but most of us are not. So we need to train people to follow that step-by-step methodology. And an opening is an opening is an opening. And I am sure that one of the students is going to say, oh yeah, but you're in China, we're in South America. No difference.
Completely agree. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Gert. It's a wonderful advice. And I agree. The transferable skills are very important, and everyone should grow them. Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. Do you have questions?
Yeah, I don't know if we have any other question, but I had Madeleine. You raised your hand. I don't know if you still have your question.
Yeah, I had a question actually. I wanted to ask if, like, why do you think that the demand for the China market is that high? Like, nowadays it is competing against the US, and it is seen that in the future it will win against it. So why do you think that is happening?
That's an interesting perspective. Being here, I don't see that is how China goes about it. But China does want to be internationally recognized as one of the economic powers. Okay. However, what China is doing really is what the US has done since the 1950s, but they started later. And let me give you a very brief history lesson on China. China came out of the Cultural Revolution late 1970s. They had a new leader then, Deng Xiaoping. And until then, the mantra was, everyone is poor. And being poor is the communist way of doing things. Deng Xiaoping then said, actually being rich is glamorous. He made that statement. But he only did so in 1979. And until 1979, China was closed. I never even dreamt in my teens to visit China, let alone live and work here. But once they started, they understood that the best way to keep peace within the country was to improve the lives of everyone and not let other things interfere with that. So what they have done since then is build industries everywhere, massive infrastructure projects, housing projects, and in order to get around the country, they have a highway network that goes around the world 1.5 times, 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. And with that, of course, comes the need for hotels. Now, all those hotels, actually not unlike Europe, is mainly for domestic traffic. And China, and this is why they are going to do very well post-COVID, the middle class alone is 300 million, as big as the entire population of the United States. So yes, they are competitive, but I don't see it as they want to dominate and force their will on other people. That's not the Chinese way of doing things. It's more about long-term relationships, which I think is a fundamental difference with the United States, which is more on short-term relationship, right? Does that answer your question?
It does. I also had another question. Like,
Shoot.
do you think that all this problem about the COVID-19 will affect the auto industry in China too? Like you said that in China, it is more like a domestic demand, but in kind of like looking around international demand, people nowadays are kind of like afraid for going to China because they know that COVID originated from there. So what are your perspectives about it?
Yeah, that would be a complete separate webinar. So first and foremost, China and some other countries in Asia acted very, very quickly because we had the experience, of course, of SARS 15 years back. I was a general manager in Hong Kong, and my occupancy overnight dropped from 85 to 5%, with all the consequences of that. So it was taken very serious here. I thought that with the amount of warning lead time that the Middle East, Europe, North and South America would act. But it seemed like I was in a dream and people saying, oh, it won't be that bad, it will go away. That's not the case. Now, mind you, China last year, the Chinese took 3 million domestic trips, and there were only something like 160 million overseas travelers coming to China. So obviously for China, tourism is important, but because they were able to quickly control the disease, they have a sufficiently big population to fuel domestic traffic and keep the economy alive. I'm sad to say that if the United States and the European Union would have taken action immediately, they have populations that are big enough to support the economy locally. Okay, so I forgot the other part of your question. Oh yeah, the impact of COVID. In China, not much, okay, because we have recently reopened the border between Macau and China. There were 160,000 visitors in 1 week, and we did not have any cases. Okay, in the rest of the world, I will make you a couple of predictions, and I do speak a lot with industry leaders in order to be informed of what is going on. Business travel, expectations are that it will only restart by 2022. Okay, if business travel does restart, it will be the upscale and the upper upscale lifestyle brands where you have more personal space that will do well. Big box hotels with convention centers and big meetings facilities, we don't even know if they will reopen at all. On the other hand, what will happen is that at some point, people will get very frustrated of sitting at home. Mind you, I have not been able to leave Macau since end of January. I'd like a holiday. Okay, so beach resorts and retreats, they are likely to restart. What we will also see is that those 15,000 projects that I spoke about, I think there will be a wash down, because I never said that we needed those hotels. But, you know, this is a problem in the world. A lot of hotel projects are done for ego, not because of return on investment. And money was easy. You just go to the bank or to some investment company and they will give you the money. And right now, what I do know from a number of clients that I'm working with, to get funding for a new build project impossible. So we will probably also see a number of hotel companies that own assets go bankrupt. And that will create new opportunities for other hotel companies to buy those assets. But in the short term, I am not even expecting to travel in 2021. So that is in the short term. So the real question you are asking is, when am I graduating? And what am I going to do if there are no jobs? Well, let's address that. At some point, the economies will restart. What are your competitive advantages that will put you in advance ahead of other people that are applying for the same jobs? Okay, I don't know if you do speak Portuguese, but let's just assume that you knew guaranteed in 12 months, you will get a job in Club Med somewhere in Brazil. What would you do today? I would start studying Portuguese. Okay, well, that is where you will need to make an educated guess. What are the skills that would be needed graduation plus 1 year? How do you make use of that time? Should you start an MBA? Should you start studying project management? Something that will help you get there. And at some point, projects will restart, even if it is maybe not new build. But one trend that I could see happening is that a lot of the hotels that are currently empty, that will never reopen as a hotel, could probably be repositioned as service department, that kind of stuff, right? And they will need competent people that know how to manage those projects. So there you go. I hope that didn't depress you too much.
No, actually, that was a fun answer. I was actually wondering about China because I wanted to learn Chinese. My dream is kind of like going there and work on an hotel in China, but I wasn't that sure about the market. So thank you for answering my questions.
Look, I am sure, and this is the one big mistake that I will admit that I made in my career. I had the choice of staying in China when I was 29 and go to a language school and do Mandarin from 9 to 5 as a job. And the other alternative was to become a general manager. And stupid, I chose for general manager. Okay, so my Mandarin is not fantastic. Imagine that with the experience that you have, you can also speak Chinese. And it's not even a matter anymore of going to China. China will come to you. I am sure that there is Chinese tourists, little red flags, little yellow flags in Ecuador. And if not, I am sure that there's Chinese companies that are already operating there, manufacturing or purchasing. So go for it. That's a no-brainer. Learn Mandarin. Yeah.
Thank you, Gert. I have a follow-up question. And by the way, I don't think your decision was too bad, because becoming our general manager, it's not too shabby, not too shabby. So if you have an investor that right now wants to put a hotel, to build a hotel, to develop a hotel, which type of hotel would you recommend in this part of the world, like the Americas and probably Europe? More of a luxury hotel, a business type, and it's really a short answer.
Yeah, well, you nailed the problem on the head, Damian. Owners don't listen. Okay, they want a Hyatt Regency because whenever they go here or there, I stay in that hotel and the service and the product is fantastic. What I will not recommend any type of product or brand other than, look, let's follow the project life cycle, because the project life cycle without emotion tells you what will be the best brand, what will be the best product. And a misperception is obviously that 5-star hotels earn more than 3-star hotels. And a small anecdote here, when I was with IHG, my role was to open Holiday Inn Express. Ooh, what is Holiday Inn Express? 3-star brand. So my colleagues that were opening Crown Plaza and Intercon and Indigo were making fun of me. The 3-star guy. Didn't faze me. And I said, okay, let's talk about profitability. Mr. Crown Plaza, what is your GOP? 25% on average. Intercom, we have higher expenses, so 20%. Holiday Inn Express, 70% GOP. So if you bring your money to the bank, do you care about the brand of the bank, or do you care that this one gives you 1% interest and this one 3% interest? So I would always advocate, let's go through the project life cycle. First question, in this part of town or in this island, do we need another hotel? Bali, for example, they have really oversupplied. Average occupancy in the island, not even 60% before COVID. So if you come to me and say, I have a piece of land, yeah, Damian, don't do a hotel, right? I don't know, Quito, if there is a big demand for business travelers for, let's say, budget or economy branded. If there is unaccommodated demand, go for it. But can you afford to pay the investment? Because look at Hong Kong. Hong Kong land is so expensive. We need new hotels in Hong Kong because of 3 convention centers and because of tourism. But the cost, here's a funny story. The underground, the subway, the cost is calculated by the millimeter. That is how expensive land is. So you could never build a hotel and make enough money to earn it back. So follow the project life cycle to come to that decision, because it will ask you, do you make more money with a brand or without a brand? Do you make more money with a franchise or a management agreement, or do it yourself? So follow the methodology. Incidentally, 2 weeks ago, I did a workshop for one potential customer, a Mexican gentleman living in California, who said, I have a piece of land. My friend is an architect. I want to do a hotel. What do you think of Hard Rock, Nikki Beach, you know, those kind of things? I said, okay, let me do a lecture for you that I did at the Catholic University of Portugal. And I went step by step. And architecture is phase 10. And he said, okay, I get the picture. I have not sold one single room, but we have already been working for 3 years. So he is now rethinking his strategy as to what he should do, right? But most of the time, Damian, owners have already made that decision and signed a contract. So we have work to do. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to this class, because they will remember this. And when they are facing a chairperson that said, I have a piece of land and my friend is an architect, they'll say, stop. I had a lecture once, and that's the wrong way to go about it.
Thank you so much, Gert, for the presentation. Really, I enjoyed. I learned a lot. I have some questions, but let's keep them for the next session. I think will be good. I really appreciate that you talk in this. You say this the lecture. I think this is important. Not only to know that, okay, you have to know how to operate the hotel, but you have to know how to build the hotel and to be on time and to start good, so the rest of the operation will be profitable. And I think that's important. If you don't know where you want to run, as you said, how you can start running. So that's definitely important, and that's something that many times in this industry we do. Is like, yeah, we want to build an hotel, tourists will come, so let's do it, and we don't know why, how, or even if we don't have the knowledge to do that. And that is happening a lot in Galapagos. And for example, just to give a small example, and we have a research with Damian just exactly about that, about the human resources in Galapagos, and how general managers don't have the knowledge in hospitality. So how the industry is working there is interesting. So again, thank you very much. And I hope we can meet again for the second part of the lecture, because I think this part of project management is really important, and sometimes we don't pay attention to that.
You're
on anytime to talk about the project life cycle.
Thank you very much, Gert. I appreciate very much all your help. It's been a wonderful lecture. I really appreciate, and I've learned a lot, and I think our students as well. Thank you for your time, and thank you for waking up so early for us.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Anytime, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Gert.
All right.
Take care.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Gert.
Take care.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.